In today's episode of the Platform Presents podcast, I have an interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Gavin Hammar, and he's hailing over from currently the folks at StoryPrompt, where he's the founder since recent. But prior to that, he was CEO and founder by Insendable. They were actually acquired in 2021. So we want to learn a little bit about that journey as well. Insendable is a social media management platform for small businesses. And today we want to really jump into the journey of growth for Sendable, learning about how Gavin thinks about growth and accelerating growth, and then also, learning a little bit about StoryPrompt, his latest endeavor. So, Gavin, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much, Lucas. Great to be here.
Yeah, of course. So maybe just for the people who haven't we go in sequence, right? We're in Sendable, and then you started StoryPrompt. Maybe give us a quick overview on the two companies. What were they all about? What are they all about? And what was your key involvement on that? Just to give everybody a quick overview.
Cool. Yeah. So Sendable is a social media management software company designed mainly for agencies. We launched in 2009. We now have over 30,000 users on the platform, over 6,500 customers. And we actually went through a period of slow growth from 2016 to 2018. And then after that, our growth really accelerated over the last 3 years, which led to our acquisition in 2021. The company was fully bootstrapped until we were acquired. I was 100% owner of the company. And then, since setting the company, I started building a new startup called StoryPrompt, which helps businesses collect video testimonials asynchronously from customers and employees.
That's very cool, actually. Very timely. We have a lot of people on the show talking about testimonials and how do you actually present them effectively, and so that case studies get a little bit outdated sometimes, and giving it a new angle to it. Very cool. Makes a lot of sense. Now, maybe we start at the beginning of the journey. If we speak about Sendable, because obviously you got a lot of experience there in the social media world. What was sort of the major client, the types of clients that go with Sendable, what problem were you solving for them?
Yeah, so Sendable could be used by anyone, from SMBs all the way through to enterprise customers. But our sweet spot was really for agencies. So we help them manage social media at scale. So they could come on there, add their clients, send them things for approval before the content goes out. They could build reports for all those clients. We also offered a white label solution, which really helped to accelerate our growth in the early years, where they could reskin the entire platform and make it look like it's their own product. So yeah, I would definitely say it's obviously for all sizes, SMBs all the way up to enterprise, but mainly agencies.
Mm-hmm. And how did folks back then learn about Sendable? Like, what was sort of the client acquisition chance? You guys had some rapid growth, hence obviously the acquisition at some point. And you mentioned you were running it at first as a single founder. Maybe tell us a little bit about like early traction and later traction, and how those stages, separate when it comes to like growth channels.
Yeah, so early stages. So basically I worked full time on Sendable from 2010. So I quit my job, went all in on the product, just me as a solo founder. And I needed to kind of make money fast. I had 6 months of savings to live off. So what I did was I launched the white label program back then as a way to get resellers to come on board and sell Sendable for me. So we were able to generate 6 figures of revenue in that first year, just purely me by myself having this reseller model. And then over time, we just continued to grow organically as more businesses came on. I think timing was a big thing as well, because back then social media was just being taken seriously by businesses. But it was already inbound, word of mouth driven. People heard about the white label solution. They were inquiring about how they could get access. And then over time, we grew a sales team. So as we wanted to reach more enterprise sort of clients or customers and bigger agencies, I hired a sales team which is focused purely on the inbound. So we had so many leads coming to us, hundreds of leads every week. We needed a team to be able to kind of qualify them and then book demos. So we had SDRs, we had a sales exec, and that's how we grew it from then. And then, as I mentioned, the slow period of growth in 2016 to 2018 came about because we had around 7,000 other tools in the MarTech space and around 250 plus tools offering social media management, all very well funded. So as a bootstrap company, we really couldn't compete in the space on the kind of the ads and kind of hiring an outbound sales team. It really didn't make sense. So I decided to reposition ourselves as more of a sort of human-centric brand and introduce storytelling as a means for our company to be heard in a very crowded space. So what that meant was kind of showing our faces, sharing behind the scenes content on social media, starting a podcast, telling stories about how we were overcoming struggles as a bootstrap company. And from that, we were able to almost build a tribe of listeners and audience who were kind of wanting us to succeed as the underdog, competing with the likes of Hootsuite, Sprout Social, etc. And then from 2018 onwards, 2019, our growth started to just accelerate. Just from that compounding of the brand building really paid off for us.
It's very interesting because a lot of founders are in the situation where there's like very well-funded companies. Like what actions kind of did you found to be most helpful when building that brand? Like, because it obviously can take a while until it pays back. What was your strategies and sort of what was your mantra to like look for the long-term effect rather than just the short term?
So just trying to stand out. So when everyone else looks the same, everyone's using stock images on their blog, for example, we would choose to use real images of real people that we had impacted as a brand. So we'd have like employees on the websites, photos of employees rather than stock images. One way of doing it. Something else we did was we actually created a video newsletter. So everyone's sending out email newsletters. We created a video newsletter with our team sharing the latest updates of the company that went out every month to our users. They got to know the people behind the brand, behind Sendable. So video was a big part in kind of humanizing our brand. Something I would do as a CEO, I always saw myself as the more human CEO. Like, how could I delight customers and surprise them as a fairly large company when they wouldn't expect it? So for example, I would every week I'd welcome all the new users, send a welcome message on LinkedIn. Hey, it's Gavin, the founder of Sendable. Would love to hear about how you're using the product. And like a very personalized approach. And they were so blown away. The CEO of a big company would reach out to them. They would then tell their friends about it, tell other people about Sendable and how personable and human it was. And then we also invested in owned media. So as I said about the podcast, rather than like using rented media, like social media, relying on Facebook, that kind of thing, if you can own your audience yourself and have a direct channel to get to them, like a podcast, that can really push you in the right direction. So I launched the podcast in 2019, started sharing the stories, as I said. And then from there, we actually hosted some meetups with Sendable customers. They would then bring prospects to those meetups. So we'd have Sendable customers meeting prospects, sharing the amazing experience they had at Sendable, and the word of mouth would just spiral out of control from all of that kind of brand awareness and brand building. Those are some of the ways we kind of pushed the brand forward.
Very cool, very cool. And just for people to put that into perspective, what was the team size around that time? Is that is that something you can pull off with a small team? Do you need certain marketing team strength in order to pull that off?
Yeah, so we went to Social Media Marketing World for the first time, which is a big social media conference in San Diego back in 2019, the start of this transition for the company. So back then, we probably had our team was probably about 40 people in the company, and the marketing team was probably about 5 people. But it was more about like everyone else is hosting a booth at a trade show. We decided to be different and host a party at a bar, so to create the experience, to create a more memorable experience. So that we could pull off really easily with a lean team. We just needed someone in the company to organize that venue. We were able to get them to cater it, provide the drinks and everything. And then the brand was just displayed all over the venue on like billboards and like screens and that kind of thing. So it was very easy to kind of get the word of mouth spreading because we're being different. Instead of having a booth, we had an event for them and gave away free swag. So these things are fairly easy to do. Actually, on the point of swag, it's another thing we did was we actually created swag that is more about what we believed in as a brand as opposed to what we do. So most people will have like the name of the company, like Path Monk on the swag, maybe. We chose to have a mantra, which is every brand has a story, be its voice, which is speaking to the agency themselves, make them feel like they're part of your vision. And they'd proudly wear our merchandise because of that sort of mantra on the back.
Very interesting. It sounds like you did a lot of sort of offline driven actions as well. Well, customers converting online, and for that matter, like is that something you found difficult to measure back then? Was it something that was easy or difficult to figure out where actually the value comes from?
Yeah, it's hard to measure brand awareness. The way we did it was we were looking at brand searches, so keyword searches for the word Sendable. So I think that gave us a clue as to whether the brand building was working. So we'd see the upward trend of those searches. We'd know from that it's working. And then we also added to our sign-up form, we added a where did you hear about us? So the drop-down box. So we could determine how effective the brand building was. Because obviously, it doesn't seem like it's working if you're in the moment. But looking back in hindsight, you can see over time how it played a role in our growth. We were basically a 12-year-old company. The growth had slowed and we saw that uptick in growth. And we just couldn't understand how it changed. So it's definitely attributed to the brand building and the storytelling and showing our faces and being different in the market.
Very cool. When you were at that point of starting that story building path, is there some books, experts, resources that you remember that helped you to get a good mindset for everybody who's just at that position now, maybe needing to build out that story?
Yeah, I think what I did was I went to this conference, obviously, and everyone spoke about storytelling there. So I got to know a very well-known kind of brand storyteller called Park Howell. He has a podcast as well on storytelling. So I listened to him, followed him, got to become friends with him. And then I read a book called Build a Story Brand. I think it's called Build a Story Brand, which takes you through the process and how to make your brand stand out through the power of storytelling. And because, we had a team that didn't really believe in storytelling, that they weren't really brand builders. Our marketing team was more about CRO, that kind of thing. So as a CEO, I needed to lead from the front. I needed to experiment myself with the storytelling techniques. So I took it upon myself to start the podcast, share the stories, help give a voice to our team, and get them comfortable kind of publicly sharing behind the scenes content, even kind of touching on your mistakes. So it's really good to touch on your vulnerabilities publicly. So I would do this on LinkedIn, obviously using this book as a guide. I'd post on LinkedIn about the mistakes I made as a CEO and how I overcame them and the lessons I shared. And over time, I used to get messages from customers saying, "Oh, Gavin, I'm really paying attention to you now. Your LinkedIn content is really inspiring me to pay attention to your brand more and to your business." So they would then follow me as a human behind the brand. And I would always remind them to come back to the product. So you get that sort of reduction in churn as well, just from doing these things.
Very cool. So now currently you're onto a new endeavor, StoryPrompt. We will get into it in a second, but is there something when it comes to growth, right, that you learned in the previous company that you're taking over for sure for the next company? Like how do you sort of transfer what you learned over to your new company? And after that, we jump a bit more in detail into storyboard.
Yeah, so with Sendable, as I mentioned, we had a fairly large sales team. It was a fairly complicated product. I think we had about 8 salespeople out of the 50 people in the company at one stage. We had SDRs, we had sales execs, and I think it was because the product was complicated. So for my new product, I want to keep it as simple as possible and focus more on product-led growth. So when users sign up, they're able to get the use case very easily. They're able to understand where to go. The UX is really simple. There's no need to hire a salesperson. And I think if we can do that, we can kind of help to scale the product without having a huge team. So I think it's more about the mistakes I made that I want to maybe do differently with the new product. Obviously with Sendable, we use tools like, obviously we had HubSpot as our CRM, and we were able to introduce marketing automation through that. We used MadKudu for lead scoring because we had so much volume of users signing up, and because we had to do so many demos to convert them. So with StoryPrompt, it's really just about bringing in the volume, making sure that they see the value from the product itself, and that they can then convert from there.
Small one, because you mentioned a couple of times there was a lot of traffic and a lot of leads. Like you did the brand building, you did the awareness stuff. Anything else that you felt contributed to that large online traffic? It's not an easy feat to pull off always.
Yeah, it's a good question. We focused on referral traffic as well. So something I did which really paid dividends in the long term was I reached out to listicles. So any of like the top 5 social media management tools. I reached out to those bloggers, and I would get to know them really well. Like I would meet them, chat to them, have a Zoom call with them. They would then trust me. And then I would then pitch them the idea of pushing Sendable to the top of their lists in exchange for some affiliate commission. So I would do this for the top ranking listicles. And that really drove most of our traffic. So obviously word of mouth is a big thing, but the traffic came from referrals. From these bloggers who were willing to move Sendable to the top of the list. We had one sort of affiliate who was generating insane amounts of commission every month. It was crazy. So definitely that was the biggest thing. And I think it's a fast track, it's like a growth hack to help with your SEO, is where you partner with bloggers to get on those listicles.
And when you say listicle, just for people who are not familiar with this, could you is that like an actual platform? Is that you Google for high listing articles that have lists of products? Like what was so the actual place? Yeah,
so you would take your category name, so social media management software, and you would just use a tool like Ahrefs potentially, and you basically type in best social media management software, for example, and in that list of results on Ahrefs, you would get the top ranking list articles, so listicles. So you'd see Hootsuite, Sprout Social, Agora Pulse, etc. And if Sendable wasn't there, I would contact that blogger and get them to put Sendable on the top of the list in exchange for some sort of commission or some sort of kind of to help them in some way. And by doing that, we're able to really boost our SEO results, because those articles that are ranking top of Google is what people look for when they're looking for a social media tool. So yeah, the tactic is just type in your category name, find the highest ranking articles, and go after those bloggers to get your tool listed on those.
Anything you learned in the pitch to them, like, because obviously a lot of people might contact them, anything that you found to be a good twist or angle to contact them?
Yeah, so in terms of influencing them to use it, you have to use the likability factor always. You have to use social proof. You have to use urgency. So I would almost, I guess, in my email templates, I'd mention maybe another affiliate, and I would say this affiliate who's done something similar to you is generating $7,000 a month. All you have to do is move us to the top of your list, and I'm sure you can do the same because your article is ranking higher. Mm-hmm. So you have the social proof aspect. You then have the affiliate commission, so it's kind of giving them something in return. But then also, yeah, just having the urgency. Like if you can do it by this week, or we'll give you a higher commission, if you do it now rather than later. So things like that, just using typical copywriting in your emails, gotcha. But really not coming across too pushy or too salesy is the key.
And that was similar for the bloggers? Yeah, for the bloggers, similar or different? For the bloggers, how do you approach that?
Similar thing to the bloggers. You just, obviously you mentioned, I love your article on these things, really, really useful article. I saw Sendable wasn't on their list.
Cool.
I was wondering why, maybe I can give you free access to the tool in exchange for you putting us on that list. So it's really just finding different ways to get through. Mm-hmm. Some bloggers will just give you that listicle placement in exchange for free access to your tool. Mm-hmm. So I would definitely recommend that first before commission. Mm-hmm. And then we also offered a very generous commission to the bloggers. Mm-hmm. So we gave 30% lifetime commission for some of them, so that they would be really incentivized to make those changes. But it really paid off because most of our traffic came from those referrals. We didn't get any traffic from ads, never really worked for us, because when you're targeting agencies, they kind of naturally filter out ads. They just kind of skim past them. So for us, we needed to really get that trust-based sort of content in front of them.
That makes sense. Yeah, super interesting. I appreciate you sharing those little details because they make it really easy to understand. Maybe one last question before we dive a little bit deeper into the current endeavor. You mentioned resellers at the very beginning. Like for somebody who's starting off, trying to find resellers, like what's the 2-3 steps you recommend them to do? Like what did you do in order to find good resellers at the beginning?
Yeah, so it was mainly outreach back then. So because social media was becoming a big thing, agencies were offering social media to businesses. And all these other tools were offering these services to these agencies, but none of them were offering a white label reseller option. So I think it helped that we were like the first one to do it. Maybe we were slightly different in the space. So I would reach out to them and again, similar to what I did with the bloggers, but suggest that they could potentially add a new revenue stream to their agency revenue by offering a reseller or offering a white label solution to their clients. So, I think agencies really do want to find extra revenue streams, through the tools that they offer. Because, if you're an agency and you're recommending Hootsuite, for example, your client can always fire you as an agency and then go use Hootsuite, and you'll never see that revenue again. Whereas if you offer a white label service, you actually have that client's revenue for as long as they're using your product, even if they leave your agency. So that was a really easy angle to pitch to them. Here's a tool, try it out. And often they had like 40, 50 clients ready to use it. So they could just come on board, get them set up, and there'd be revenue for them, revenue for Sendable. So it was like a no-brainer for them to try it. So it's really, again, just pitching them through email, mentioning the tool. Actually, one other thing we did was we took their logo and created a mock-up of what their white label could look like. So we'd kind of create a mock-up, show them what their social media tool could look like, and then pitch it to them that way. So it's a very visual way to get their attention. Which just worked really well.
Very cool. Let's speak a second about StoryPrompt, right? Now you're in the space of, you've been in the space of creating contact and social contact quite a bit there through the stories that you just shared. Now, StoryPrompt is all about getting testimonials, right? Getting customer testimonials on scale. Maybe tell us a little bit about sort of, how customers currently use StoryPrompt and what they can get out of it.
Yeah, so our vision with StoryPrompt is we want to help brands give a voice to the communities they serve. So really collect the stories, collect the content from their communities, which is customers, employees, partners, and then kind of take the friction out of video production. So it really helps you collect the content and then it uses AI to produce branded videos that you can then use in your social media marketing or in your email marketing or on your website. So the AI will kind of use B-roll if your clients supply the B-roll and inject that into the actual finished product. But the whole purpose here is to save SMBs time, save marketers time, save community managers time, and help them collect the stories that can really impact the purchasing decision. Because I found with Sendable that people no longer really trust the brands or trust what you have to say about yourself. What really works best is if you have someone else talking about you and how you've helped them. So we want to help give those people a voice to help the brands be heard through them and through their authentic stories in relation to how you've helped them, kind of achieve their goals.
Very cool. You mentioned a little while ago that StoryPrompt, you really like the approach of a more simpler product versus a more complex product to sell, given that the sales team wouldn't be necessarily required. Like, how do you think now different about growth? Is there different growth channels that you approaching? Do you use some techniques that you already learned? Like, how do you approach now growth for StoryPrompt?
Yeah, so we're more focused on SEO this time. So Sendable didn't need to focus on SEO because we're able to partner with affiliates and bloggers. In this new product StoryPrompt, we're trying to just really do it in a more authentic way. So really SEO, targeting sort of competitors, traffic. So where you see kind of incoming links to competitors' articles, trying to give them fresh content, better content that they can then use in place of that content from competitors. And I guess it's a very broad sort of area. So we're targeting obviously testimonial video software. So finding a way to kind of rank on top of Google for that would be really useful because it can be used by anyone, small businesses, marketers, community managers. So really SEO is a big play there. And then obviously brand building and social media. So we are testing some Google ads right now as well. But mainly just really building a brand first. So I learned this the hard way at Sendable, the importance of brand building. So a StoryPrompt, it's really starting with building your tribe, getting a following, talking about what problem you're solving in the world, why video is important, why using your customers as your billboards for your brand is so important, and then using that following to then buy into the product and the solution. So it's kind of the opposite of what I did at Sendable, where I just built the product, launched, then figured out the brand. Now I'm doing the reverse, building a brand, getting a following, and then using the product to help them kind of solve that need.
Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, we're definitely going to be very curious to follow the StoryPrompt brand storyline and development. Last question on StoryPrompt, like, how do you think about the website? Like, what role does the website play in the customer's journey of getting started?
Obviously, it's the most important thing. It's the first thing they see when they land on the site. So yeah, I think a website is critical. I mean, we use Intercom now for our live chats, which we used to use at Sendable as well, so we can engage them at the right moments. I guess for Sendable, we're focused more on lead capturing. So we would have a demo request form, and that was one of the main things. And then obviously have a free trial. I guess for StoryPrompt, it's more about getting them into the funnel, getting them to start a trial or start using the product, because we offer a free plan, so they can use it and get the first 25 videos for free. And then after that, they can choose to upgrade. So for us, the website's designed just to bring you into that funnel and sign up for the free trial. And I think with this product, I've really focused more on kind of speed of the site, making it mobile friendly. I think with Sendable, because we were so early in social media, back in 2009, 2010, we didn't really have to focus so much on the website speed. I mean, Sendable's website is, it's not as fast because it's on HubSpot, whereas we're using Webflow now for StoryPrompt. And I can see the results already. We're kind of improving our ranking in SEO right now. So that's critical. And then obviously copywriting is really key when it comes to website converting well.
Very cool. Now, a lot of fantastic insights in the interview today. I have some rapid fire questions to wrap it up as we're approaching the end of the interview. Are you ready for those?
Yeah, let's do it.
Very cool. So the first question will be, what is the last book you read or the last podcast you listened to?
Selling the Invisible was the book.
What's the one single thing your company is focused on the most at the moment?
So we're building the next version of StoryPrompt, which is to help communities communicate asynchronously with video.
If there would be no boundaries in tech, what would be the one thing you would fix for your role today?
There's no boundaries on tech. Probably so we have a podcast. I think to save time on podcast editing would be critical, yeah.
What is the last thing that kept you awake at night about the company?
Obviously, with Sendable, it was close to the acquisition date when I had to announce it to the team. StoryPrompt is still early days, so nothing at the moment. Just figuring out how to kind of acquire new customers and doing it the right way.
Very cool. And the very last question would be, right, if we go back to the days of University of Cape Town, right, you're getting out of formal education into the world of businesses and building tech companies, what's the one advice you would give yourself for your journey?
Probably to start building a company earlier, not be afraid to take risks. I waited probably about 10 years after university to start building stuff. Yeah, I think that's it.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on Platform Presents.
Cool. Thank you so much.